His presence daily.
The 30th of January 1901, Volume 4, The Poison of Interest. The virtues and the merits of Jesus are as many towers of fortitude on which everyone can lean along the journey on the way to eternity. This morning, on coming, blessed Jesus transported me outside of myself in the midst of many people of different conditions, priests, nuns, secular, and beginning his sorrowful lament, Jesus said, "My daughter, the poison of interest has entered into all hearts, and they have become soaked with this poison like sponges. This pestilent poison has penetrated into monasteries, into priests, into secular. My daughter, that which does not surrender to the light of truth and to the power of virtue surrenders before a most wretched interest, and before this poison the most sublime and excelling virtues fall, shattered like fragile glass." And while saying this, he cried bitterly, "Who can say the torment of my soul in seeing my most loving Jesus cry?" Not knowing what to do to make him stop crying, I spoke some nonsense. "My dear, oh please do not cry. If the others do not love you, offend you, and have their eyes dazzled by the poison of interest in such a way as to remain all soaked with it, there is I who love you, praise you, look at all that is earthly as rubbish, and aspire to nothing but in you. Therefore you should be content in my love and stop crying. And if you feel embittered, pour it upon me, for I am more content with it than seeing you cry." On hearing me, he stopped crying and poured a little bit. Then he shared with me the pains of the cross, and then he added, "My virtues and the merits I acquired for man in my passion are as many towers of fortitude on which everyone can lean along the journey on the way to eternity. But man, ungrateful, running away from these towers of fortitude, leans on mud and conducts himself along the way to perdition." Then Jesus disappeared, and I found myself inside myself. End of the reading. The 30th of January 1906, Volume 7. Constancy orders everything. Continuing in my usual state, blessed Jesus came for just a little and told me, "My daughter, how necessary it is that the soul be constant in doing the good which she has started. In fact, though she has a beginning, she will have no end, and not having an end, it is necessary that she conform to the ways of the eternal God. God is just, is holy, is merciful. He is the one who contains everything. But perhaps only for one day? No, always, always, always. In the same way, the soul must not be patient, humble, and obedient one day, and impatient, proud, and capricious another day. These are broken virtues. It is like mixing black and white, light and darkness. Everything is disorder. Everything is confusion, ways which are completely dissimilar to her Creator. In this soul, there is continuous war because passions wage war against her. In fact, in seeing themselves being nourished so very often, they hope the victory is theirs. Demons, creatures, and even virtues themselves, in seeing themselves disappointed, wage a fierce war against her and end up nauseating her. If these souls are saved, oh, how much work the fire of purgatory will have to do. On the other hand, for a constant soul, everything is peace. Mere constancy itself already keeps everything in its place. Passions already feel they are dying. And who is the one who, nearing death, thinks about waging war against anyone? Constancy is the sword that puts everything to flight. It is the chain that binds all virtues in such a way as to feel caressed by them continuously. And the fire of purgatory will have no work to do, because constancy has ordered everything and has made the ways of the soul similar to those of the Creator. End of the reading. The 30th of January 1909, Volume 8, The Story of Why. Finding myself in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself. I seemed to see a soul in purgatory whom I knew, and I said to her, "Take a look at how I am before God. I am so concerned about it, especially about the state in which I find myself." And she told me, "It takes nothing to know whether you are doing well or badly. If you appreciate suffering, you are doing well. If you don't, you are doing badly. In fact, one who appreciates suffering appreciates God, and by appreciating him, one can never displease him. Things which are appreciated are also esteemed, loved, and one cherishes them and keeps them safe more than oneself. Can it ever be possible that one wants evil for himself? In the same way, it is impossible that one may displease God if he appreciates him." Then afterwards, Blessed Jesus came for just a little and told me, "My daughter, in almost all of the events that occur, creatures keep repeating over and over again, and why, and why, and why? Why this illness? Why this interior state? Why this scourge? And many other whys. The explanation of why is not written on earth but in heaven, and there everyone will read it. Do you know what why is? It is egoism, which gives continuous food to love of self. Do you know where why was created? In hell. Who was the first one that pronounced it? A demon. The effects produced by the first why were the loss of innocence in Eden itself, the war of untamable passions, the ruin of many souls, the evils of life. The story of why is long. It is enough to tell you that there is no evil in the world which does not carry the mark of why. Why is destruction of divine wisdom in souls? And do you know where why will be buried? In hell, to make them restless for eternity without ever giving them peace. The art of why is to wage war against souls without ever giving them respite. End of the reading. The 30th of January 1916, Volume 11. When the soul lives completely in the divine will, all her work is reflected in Jesus, and the work of Jesus is reflected in her. I was fusing myself completely in my always adorable Jesus. And while I was doing this, Jesus came, fusing himself all in me, telling me, "My daughter, when the soul lives completely in my will, if she thinks, her thoughts are reflected in my mind in heaven. If she desires, if she speaks, if she loves, all is reflected in me, and all I do is reflected in her. It happens as when the sun is reflected in the glass. One can see another sun in it, completely similar to the sun in the heavens, with this difference. The sun in the heavens is fixed and remains always in its place, while the sun in the glass is passing. Now my will crystallizes the soul, and all she does is reflected in me. And I, wounded and enraptured by these reflections, send her all my light, so as to form another sun in her. Therefore one sun in heaven and another one on earth appear. What enchantment! What harmonies between them! How many goods are poured out for the benefit of all! But if the soul is not fixed in my will, it can happen to her as to the sun which is formed in the glass, which is a passing sun. After a while, the glass remains obscured, and the sun in heaven remains alone. End of the reading. The 30th of January 1922, Volume 13. The truths are new creations. The truth is light, and light extends by itself, but in order for it to extend, it is necessary to make it known. The rest it will do by itself. As I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus came, and seeing me all reluctant to manifest and write what he tells me, with such an imposing look as to make me tremble, he said to me, "My daughter, my word is creative, and when I speak, making known a truth that belongs to me, it is nothing less than new divine creations that I make in the soul. When I created the heavens with one single fiat, I stretched them out and studded them with billions of stars, to the extent that there is not one point of the earth from which one cannot see this heaven. And if it could not be seen from any point, it would be a dishonor for the creative power. And some could say that the creative force did not have the power to extend everywhere. In the same way, my truths are more than heavens, which I would want to make known to all, from one end of the earth to another, and make them pass from mouth to mouth, like many stars, to adorn the heaven of the truths I manifested. If the creature wanted to hide my truths, it would be as if she wanted to prevent me from creating the heavens, and by the secret she would want to keep, she would dishonor me, as if someone wanted to prevent others from looking at the heavens, at the sun, and at all the other things created by me, so as not to make me known. Ah, my daughter, the truth is light, and light extends by itself. But in order for it to extend, it is necessary to make it known. The rest it will do by itself. Otherwise, it will remain compressed without the good of being able to illuminate and to follow the course it wants. Therefore, be attentive and do not prevent me from extending the light of my truths." End of the reading. The 30th of January, 1926, Volume 18. Death of the Confessor, Father Francesco de Benedictus. Fear that she might do her own will. I was at the summit of my affliction because of the almost sudden death of my confessor. To my many interior pains due to the frequent privations of my sweet Jesus, he wanted to add such a painful blow for my poor heart, depriving me of he who was the only one who knew my poor soul. But may the fiat voluntas tua be always done, loved, and adored. The earth was not worthy to possess such a person. Therefore the Lord, to chastise us, brought him to heaven with himself. So, in my intense bitterness for having been left without confessor, not knowing myself to whom to turn, I prayed to my lovable Jesus for that blessed soul, saying, "My love, if you took him away from me, at least bring him straight to heaven with you." And crying, I said to him, "I place him in your will. Your will contains everything, love, light, beauty, all the good which has been done and will be done. May these purify him, embellish him, enrich him with all that is needed in order to be in your presence, so that you will find nothing in him which might prevent his entrance into heaven." Now, while I was doing this and saying this, a globe of light came before me, and within that light there was the soul of my confessor, taking its way toward the vault of the heavens without saying to me even one word. I remained consoled, yes, for his destiny, but embittered to the summit for my own. And I prayed Jesus that since he had taken the confessor away from me, and I myself had no one to whom to turn, by his goodness he would free me from the bother I gave to the confessor. However, not because it was wanted by me, but as something wanted by Jesus, because I feel that if Jesus conceded this to me as something wanted by me, I would feel as if I were lacking the earth under my feet, and heavens above my head, the heartbeat in my heart. So for me it would be disgrace rather than grace. And all abandoned in sorrow, I offered everything to Jesus, that he would give me the grace to do his most holy will in everything. And Jesus, compassionating my sorrow, clasped me all to himself and told me, "My daughter, courage, do not fear. I do not leave you. I will always be with you. And I promise you that if no priest wants to make himself available for your assistance, not wanting to follow my will, I will free you from this bother for them, not because you want it, but because I myself want it. Therefore do not fear, for I will not let your will enter into this. I will do everything myself. I will be jealous even of your breath, that your will may not enter into it, but only mine." Then when the night came, I felt such fear that blessed Jesus might take me by surprise and make me fall into the state of my usual sufferings, that I trembled and cried, more so since I felt as if I wanted him to free me. And blessed Jesus came out from within my interior, and placing his face close to mine, he cried, so much that I felt my face too wetted by his tears. And sobbing, he said to me, "My daughter, have patience. Remember that the destiny of the world weighs upon you. You do not know what it means to be in this state of pain together with me, even for half an hour or 5 minutes. It is my real life that is repeated upon earth. It is this divine life that suffers, that prays, that repairs in you, and transmutes my very will into you, so that it may operate in you as it operated in my humanity. And do you think this is trivial?" And keeping silent, he continued to cry. I felt my heart break in seeing Jesus cry, and I comprehended that he was crying for me, to give me the grace that his will have its full rights over me, that it maintain its life whole within my soul, and that my will would never have life. So the reason for his tears was to place my will in safety within my poor soul. And he cried for priests, in order to give them the grace to comprehend his works, that they too would be willing to do his will. End of the reading. The 30th of January 1927, Volume 20. Why Jesus did not write. How in these manifestations there are neither threats nor frights, but the echo of the celestial fatherland, when this kingdom will come. How the pains of the Most Holy Virgin and those of our Lord were pains of their office, and how they possessed true happiness. Power of voluntary pains, happiness of the kingdom of the supreme fiat. I was thinking to myself, my sweet Jesus told me many times that I had to imitate him in everything, yet he never wrote. Only once it is said in the gospel that he wrote, but not even with a pen, rather with his finger. Yet he wants me to write. So he wants to make me go out of his imitation. He did not write at all, and I must write so much. Now, while I was thinking of this, he came as a gracious little child, and placing himself in my arms, drawing his face near mine, he told me, "My daughter, give me your kisses, and I will give you mine." Then, after I kissed him various times, he incited me to kiss him again, and then he said to me, "My daughter, do you want to know why I did not write? Because I was to write through you. It is I who animate your intelligence, who feed you the words, who give motion to your hand with my hand, to make you hold the pen and write the words on paper. So it is I who am writing, not you. You do nothing but pay attention to what I want to write. Therefore, all of your work is attention. The rest I do all by myself. Do you yourself not see how many times you have no strength to write, and you decide not to do it, And in order to make you touch with your own hand that it is I who write, I invest you, and animating you with my own life, I myself write what I want. How many times have you not experienced this? Now, since an age was to pass before making known the kingdom of the supreme fiat, to allow some time in order to first make known the kingdom of redemption, and then the other of the divine fiat, I decreed not to write at that time, but to write together with you, through you, when this kingdom would be nearer, also to give a new surprise to the creatures with the excess of love of this will of mine, what it did, what it suffered, and what it wants to do for love of them. Many times, my daughter, novelties bring new life, new goods, and the creatures are so very much drawn to novelties and let themselves be as though transported by the novelty. More so, since the novelties of the new manifestations about my divine will, which have a divine strength and a sweet enchantment, and which will pour like celestial dew upon the souls burnt by the human will be bearers of happiness, of light, and of infinite goods. There are no threats nor frights in these manifestations, and if there is anything about fear, it is for those who want to remain in the maze of the human will. But then in all the rest, one can see nothing but the echo, the language of the celestial fatherland, the balm from on high which sanctifies, divinizes, and makes the down payment of the happiness which reigns only in the blessed fatherland. This is why I delight in writing that which regards the divine fiat, because I write about things which belong to my fatherland. Too perfidious and ungrateful will be those who will not recognize in these manifestations of mine the echo of heaven, the long chain of love of the supreme will, the communion of goods which our celestial Father wants to give to the creatures. And as though wanting to put aside everything that happened in the history of the world, he wants to begin a new era, a new creation, as if the new history of creation were beginning just now. Therefore, let me do, because whatever I do is of the highest importance. After this, I said to him, my love, it seems that more than anything you love this kingdom of the eternal fiat very much. In it you concentrate all your love, all your works, and you almost boast about the fact that these will serve this kingdom. If you love it so much, when will it come? Why don't you hasten its coming? And Jesus added, my daughter, when the knowledges about my divine will have followed their course, in view of the great good which they contain, goods which no creature has thought about until now, that the kingdom of my will be the outpouring of heaven, the echo of the celestial happiness, the fullness of terrestrial goods. So in view of this great good, unanimously they will yearn, they will ask that this kingdom may come soon. The same in the whole creation, with its mute language, only apparently mute, because inside of it there is my will, asking for its rights with loud and eloquent voice to be known, to dominate, and to reign over all. Therefore one will be the echo from one end of the earth to another, one the sigh, one the prayer which will be unleashed from all beings, may the kingdom of the supreme fiat come. Then triumphantly it will come into the midst of creatures. From here the necessity of the knowledges. These will be incitements and will whet the appetite of the creatures for tasting a food so delicious, and they will feel all the will, the yearning to live in a kingdom so happy, so as to free themselves from the tyranny and the slavery in which they have been kept by their own will. And as they will advance in the knowledge of all the manifestations of the goods contained in the supreme fiat, they will find your norms. You have turned heaven and earth upside down, going around everywhere and asking that this kingdom may soon become known. They will find what you have suffered to obtain such a great good for them, how they must behave and what they must do in order to have free access to live in it. Therefore, it is necessary to make everything known so that my kingdom may be all complete, and nothing may be lacking to it, either the greatest or the smallest things. So certain things which to you seem to be small may be a divine rock transformed into most pure gold, which will form part of the foundations of the kingdom of my supreme will. After this, I was thinking to myself, my sweet Jesus sings so much the praises of the happiness of the kingdom of the supreme fiat, yet he himself, who is the very divine will, and my celestial mamma, who possessed it as whole, were not happy on earth. Rather, they were the ones who suffered the most on earth. And even myself. He says I am the firstborn daughter of his will, yet he has kept me 43 years and more confined in a bed. And Jesus alone knows what I've suffered. It is true that I have also been a happy prisoner, and I would not exchange my happy destiny, even if they offered me sceptres and crowns, because what Jesus has given me has made me more than happy. Yet, apparently, to the human eye, this happiness disappears. Therefore, it seems that this happiness which Jesus talked about clashes, if one thinks of his pain, of those of the sovereign queen and my own state, the last of his creatures. But while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus, surprising me, told me, my daughter, there is an immense difference between one who must form a good, a kingdom, and one who must receive it in order to enjoy it. I came upon earth to expiate, to redeem, to save man. And to do this, I had to receive the pains of the creatures and take them upon myself as if they were mine. My divine mamma, who was to be co-redemptrix, was not to be dissimilar from me. Rather, the 5 drops of blood which she gave me from her most pure heart, in order to form my little humanity, came from her crucified heart. For us the pains were offices which we came to fulfill, therefore they were all voluntary pains, not impositions of a fragile nature. However, you must know that in spite of so many pains we suffered in order to carry out our office, highest happiness, unending and ever new joys, continuous paradise, were inseparable from me and from my Queen Mama. It was easier for us to separate from our pains, because they were not things intrinsic to us, things of nature, but things of our office, than to separate from the sea of the immense happinesses and joys that the nature of our divine will, which we possessed, produced in us as things belonging to us and intrinsic to us. Just as the nature of the sun is to give light, and that of water to quench one's thirst, that of fire to warm, and to turn everything into fire, and if they did not do so, they would lose their nature, so it is the nature of my will to make happiness, joy, and paradise arise wherever it reigns. Will of God and unhappiness does not exist, nor can exist. Maybe its complete fullness does not exist, and this is why the rivulets of the human will form bitternesses for the poor creature. For us, because the human will had no access into us, happiness was always at its peak. The seas of joys were inseparable from us. Even when I was on the cross and my mamma was crucified at my divine feet, perfect happiness never dissociated itself from us. And if this could happen, I should have gone out of the divine will, dissociated myself from the divine nature, and acted only with the human will and nature. Therefore, our pains were all voluntary, chosen by our very selves as the office which we came to fulfill. They were not fruits of the human nature, of fragility, or of the imposition of a degraded nature. And then don't you remember that your pains too are pains of office, voluntary pains? In fact, when I called you to the state of victim, I asked you if you would accept it willingly, and you with full will accepted and pronounced the fiat. Some time passed, and I repeated my refrain. If you accepted to live in and with my divine will, and you repeated the fiat, which, regenerating you to new life, made you its daughter, to give you the office and the pains which befit it for the fulfillment of the kingdom of the supreme fiat. My daughter, voluntary pains have such power over the divinity as to have the strength, the empire, to tear the womb of the celestial Father, and from this tearing which they form in God, to make seas of grace overflow, which form the triumph of the supreme majesty and the triumph of the creature who possesses this empire of her voluntary pains. Therefore, both for the great portent of redemption and for the great prodigy of the kingdom of my fiat, voluntary pains were needed, pains of office, which were to be animated by a divine will, and ruling over God and over the creatures, they were to give the great good which their office enclosed. Therefore, my praised happiness of the kingdom of the divine fiat does not clash, as you say, just because I was the divine will itself and I did suffer, and just because I have kept you in bed for so long. One who must form a kingdom, must do one thing, suffer, prepare the necessary things, and win over God in order to obtain it. Those who must receive it must do something else, that is, receive it, appreciate it, and be grateful to the one who has fought and suffered, and after winning, gives them his conquests to make them happy. Therefore, the kingdom of my will in the midst of creatures will carry the happiness of heaven, because one will be the will that must reign and dominate in both one and the other. And just as my humanity was formed from the most pure blood of the sovereign queen, a redemption was formed from my continuous crucifixion, and on Calvary I placed the seal of the cross on the kingdom of the redeemed ones. In the same way, the kingdom of the supreme fiat will come from a crucified heart, and my will, crucifying yours, will release its kingdom and happiness for the children of its kingdom. This is why, from the time I called you to the state of victim, I always spoke to you about crucifixion. You thought it was the crucifixion of hands and feet, and I let you run in this crucifixion, but it was not this one. It would not have been enough to release my kingdom. The complete and continuous crucifixion of my will in your whole being was needed, and this was exactly what I intended to speak to you about, that your will would go through the continuous crucifixion of mine in order to release the kingdom of the supreme fiat. End of the reading.
To Jesus I surrender, humbly at his feet I bow. Worldly pleasures all forsaken, take me, Jesus, take me now. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all.
The 30th of January 1930, Volume 27. As redemption unfolded, so will the kingdom of the divine will unfold. Analogy between the two of them. Leap of joy and of sorrow of Jesus. I was thinking about how the kingdom of the divine will would come upon earth and in what way it may unfold. Who will be the first fortunate ones to have such a great good? And my sweet Jesus, making himself seen, clasped me all to himself and giving me 3 kisses, told me, My daughter, in the same way as the kingdom of redemption unfolded, so will the kingdom of my will unfold. It can be said that redemption is making its round throughout the whole world, a round that it has not yet entirely completed, because not all the peoples know about my coming upon earth, and therefore they are without its goods. Redemption keeps preparing and disposing the peoples for the kingdom of my divine will. So just as my redemption had its beginning not in the whole world, but in the centre of Judea, because in this nation there was the little core of those who were waiting me. There was she whom I had chosen as mother, and Saint Joseph, who was to be my putative father. In this nation I had manifested myself to the prophets by letting them know that I was going to come upon earth. It was right that, there where this was known, they be the first ones to have me in their midst. And even though they were ungrateful and many did not want to know me, yet who can deny that my celestial mamma, the apostles, the disciples, were from the Jewish nation, and that they were the first criers who exposed their lives to make me known to other nations, my coming upon earth, and the goods that are in my redemption. So it will be for the kingdom of my divine fiat. The towns, the provinces, the kingdom that will have been the first to know the knowledges about my divine will and its expressed will of wanting to come to reign in the midst of creatures will be the first to receive the goods that its kingdom will bring. And then, making its way with its knowledges, it will do its round in the midst of the human generations. My daughter, there is much analogy between the way in which redemption unfolded and the way in which the kingdom of my divine will unfold. See, in my redemption I chose a virgin. In appearance she had no importance, according to the world, either of riches or of height, of dignity, or positions that would indicate her. The very city of Nazareth was not important. A tiny little house was her whole abode. But even though I chose her from Nazareth, I wanted for it to belong to the capital city, Jerusalem, in which there was the body of the pontiffs and priests, who then represented me and denounced my laws. For the kingdom of my divine will I have chosen another virgin, who in appearance has no importance, either of great riches or of height or of dignity. The very city of Curato is not an important city, but it belongs to Rome, in which resides my representative on earth, the Roman pontiff, from whom come my divine laws. And just as he makes it his duty to make my redemption known to the peoples, so will he make it his duty to make known the kingdom of my divine will. It can be said that one and the other will proceed in the same way and manner as the kingdom of my supreme fiat must unfold. After this, I continued my round in the divine volition, and as I arrived at Eden, I prayed Jesus that he would soon restore the purpose of the creation of man, just as he came out of his creative hands. But while I was doing this, my beloved Jesus, making himself felt in my interior, made me feel his divine heart leaping so very strongly, and all tenderness told me, my daughter, every time Eden is mentioned, my heart leaps with joy and with sorrow, in remembering the way, the manner in which man was created, his happy state, his enrapturing beauty, his sovereignty, our innocent joys and his, with which we delighted together. How beautiful was our child, a birth worthy of our creative hands. Now remembering this is so sweet and pleasing to my heart that I cannot help leaping with joy and with love. But then, in seeing him changed in his lot, descended from his happiness into the evils of the human will, because our divine will was the safeguard against all his evils and the preserver of the way in which he came out of our creative hands, and placing him in a contest with his creator, it placed him in the condition of being able to give his love, his innocent joys, to he who had created him. So in seeing him unhappy, my leap of joy is immediately followed by the leap of intense sorrow. And if you knew how pleasing to me is your coming back into this Eden to place before me what was done, beautiful, holy, great, in the creation of man, you give me the contentment, the joy of letting me repeat my leap of joy and of placing a lenitive to my leap of sorrow. That is such that if it were not followed by the sure hope that my child, by virtue of my fiat, must return to me happy by giving me his innocent joys, as it was established by us in creating him, my leap of sorrow would have no respite, and I would emit shouts so loud as to make even the heavens cry. And therefore, in hearing your continuous refrain, I want the kingdom of your divine will, my divine heart feels its leap of sorrow being stopped, and leaping with joy, I say, the little daughter of my will wants and asks for my kingdom. But why does she want it? Because she knows it, loves it, and possesses it. Therefore she prays that other creatures may possess it. In fact, since my divine will is the origin of life, of the creation of man, it alone gives him the capacity to be able to receive everything from his creator and to be able to give back to him everything he wants, that he wants. My fiat has the virtue of making the conditions of man, his fortune, change. With it, everything smiles at him. All love him. All want to serve him. And they consider themselves fortunate to serve my divine will in him. That is, in the creature in whom my divine will reigns. End of the reading. The 30th of January, 1932, Volume 30. The divine will, spy, sentinel, mother and queen. Its breath forms the support of love in order to enclose its truths in the soul. Ecstasies of love of the Creator, foods that he gives by his gifts. I was following the acts of the divine fiat, and it seemed to me that in every act of it that I followed, it prepared for me its breath of love that it contained in itself, and that it yearned to put forth from itself in order to make it prisoner in my poor soul. And I, feeling its love from inside its same love, put forth my love toward the one who loved me so much. And I yearned for its new breath of love in order to tell it with more intense affection, I love you. It seemed to me that so much is the desire that the divine will wants to be loved, that it itself places in the soul the dose of its love in order to make itself be loved, and then it awaits the love of the creature in order to be able to say to her, how content I am that you love me. But while I thought this, my adored Jesus, making his little visit, told me, my daughter, you must know that our love gives of the incredible. Our divine will is the spy of the creature, and spies when she is disposed to receive its breath of contained love, because it knows that the creature does not possess a great quantity of divine love. She hardly holds the particle of the infinite love from when she was created, and if this has not been nourished, it is like the fire when it is under ash, that while the fire exists, the ash keeps it covered and repressed in a way that the heat is not even felt. We do not want human love, and therefore our divine will uses its loving stratagems. It spies the dispositions and it breathes. Its breath, like a light breeze, puts to flight the ash that the human will has produced. The particle of our infinite love revives and ignites. My divine volition continues to breathe, and it adds more divine love. The soul feels herself emptied, re-warmed. She experiences loving refreshments, and from inside the particle of the infinite love that she possesses, she loves us and gives us our divine love as hers. You must know that so much is the love of this divine will of mine that it uses all the artifices. It acts as spy and it breathes on her, It acts as mother and cradles her in its arms. It acts as sentinel and watches over her. It acts as queen and dominates her. It acts as sun and illuminates her and lends itself even to serving her. And when it wants to deposit in you its knowledges, its truths, even one of its words, what does it do? It breathes on you so much that it forms in you first its support of love, of light, in order to enclose its truths inside the support of its love and light that it has formed in you, so that it entrusts its truths to its own love, to its light, knowing that only its love could have the true interest of conserving them, of spurring you on, so that they do not remain hidden. Oh, if it were not for this support of love of mine that encloses all the knowledges of my fiat, how many things would have been buried in your soul without anyone knowing anything about it? This is the reason why before it manifests its truth to you, it acts like the all-doer around you in order to prepare you to place new love in you, so as to form the new support for its truths and place them in the secure bank of its divine love. And if I await you in its acts with so much love, they are our usual pretexts, occasions that we seek in order to find the comma, the period of the creature, so as to give her new love, new graces. But even more than wanting her company, we do not know how to be without the one who wants to do our will. Already it carries her in its arms, in our acts, so that she is with us and with everything that we do. After this, I was continuing my round in the acts of the divine will, and arriving at the point of the creation of man, I stopped in order to be like a spectator to the love with which the divine craftsman had created him. And my highest good Jesus added, "Little daughter of my will, to the little ones we feel ourselves brought to tell our ineffable and infinite secrets. We want to tell our story, even more because her origin enters into the midst of it, in order to let her touch with her hand, with what love her littleness has been loved and re-loved by us, because she was present, she was already in us in the act of the creation of man. And this in order to let her celebrate. And we celebrate together the solemn act of his creation. Now you must know that our Supreme Being found itself in the kind of profound ecstasy, in the act of creating the creature. Our love enraptured our Divine Being, our love enraptured us, and our fiat put itself in the act of operating with its creative virtue. And it was in these loving ecstasies that all graces, the inheritances, the virtues, the beauties, the sanctities, and so forth, that would endow and enrich all creatures, were put forth from us. Our love was not content until it placed in order outside of us all that must serve for everyone and each one, all the diversity of sanctity and specialties of beauty and gifts, in order for each one to be the likeness of his Creator. These inheritances and riches are already at the disposition of everyone, so that at the birth of each creature, it already has his gift that God, even before man was created, put forth from himself for each one. But how many do not know it, nor avail themselves of the rights that God has given them? And while they are rich, they live life poor, and they are so very distant from true sanctity, as if they were not beings brought forth from that God 3 times holy, that he does not know how to make creatures holy, beautiful, and happy, similar to himself. But the centuries will not end, nor will the last of days come, until all that we put forth in our ecstasies of love becomes taken by creatures, because one can say that very little has been taken of the so much that we've placed at their disposition. But listen, good daughter, to another excess of our ardent love. In putting the inheritances, the graces, the gifts outside of us, we did not detach them from us. Outside of us, yes, but inseparable from us, so that the creature, taking our gifts with our inseparability, would receive the continuous food in order to nourish our gifts, our sanctity, our beauty, our graces. In fact, together with our gifts, we render the creature herself inseparable from us, because she does not have the necessary foods and the sanctities in order to nourish our gifts. And we offer ourselves to give gifts and foods in order to nourish our sanctity and our celestial graces, so that we are in the continuous act of being together with her in order to give her now the food in order to nourish our sanctity, now the food in order to nourish our strength, now the distinct food in order to nourish our beauty. In sum, we are around her and always occupied to give the different foods of each gift that we have given her. And this serves to conserve, to make grow, and to crown our gifts. And together the happy creature remains crowned with our, and in our same gifts. Therefore, to give a gift to the creature serves to commit ourselves to her, not only to nourishing her, but we give as pledge our work, inseparability, and our very life. Because if we want our likeness, we must give our life in order to be able to produce our likeness in her. And this we do gladly. Indeed, our love repeats our ecstasy for us and makes us give everything in order to let us take the littleness of the creature, who is also ours, and who came forth from us. From this you can comprehend what are our solicitudes, our ecstasies of love, when we give not a gift, but our own will for the life of the creature. To nourish our gifts is one thing, to nourish our will is another. Already the creature, in virtue of it, enraptures us continuously with herself, and we suffer continuous ecstasies of love. And in these ecstasies, we do nothing other than pour forth torrents of love, seas of light, and indescribable graces. Nothing is given by measure, because we must not only nourish her, but we must keep her courted and honoured with divine honours in the creature. Therefore, my daughter, be attentive, and let nothing human come forth from you, in order for you also to be able to honour with divine acts my will in you. End of the reading. The 30th of January, 1938, volume 35. All that is done by one who lives in the divine will acquires divine nature. Its prodigies in creating the divine life within the human act. Feast for the whole of heaven, the true return for the creation. My poor mind swims in the sea of the divine volition. Its murmuring is continuous. But about what is it murmuring? Love, souls, and light that want to invest each one of its children and reign within them. Oh, how many stratagems of love it uses to make them enter again into the womb of its light from which they were delivered. And in pain it says, my children, let me reign, and I will give you so much grace that you will recognize that you are children of your celestial Father. But as my mind was getting lost in this divine sea, my dear Jesus, my sweet life, renewed his short little visit, and all goodness told me, my little daughter of my divine volition, so great is the anxiety, so many the sighs, because my will wants to reign in the act of the creature, that it begins spying to see if the soul calls it prime act of her own acts. Once being called, it puts on a festive air and runs, flowing inside the act of the creature to impress its creative strength on it, and to convert it into divine nature. Therefore, this creature feels the nature of the divine love that invests her, surrounds her, and flows like blood in her veins, even in the marrow of her bones, in the beating of her heart. So her entire being says nothing other than love. Converting human acts into divine nature are the greatest prodigies that my will can do. It cannot give other than what it possesses. It possesses love, and love it gives. Oh, how happy it feels not seeing or feeling anything but love. Neither can it do without loving. In giving love to the creature, by nature, my will placed her in the divine order. All is harmony between God and the creature. One can say that my will threw the creature into our own maze of love. So if she adores, thanks, or blesses, its divine strength runs to change that adoration, thanksgiving, and blessing into divine nature. Therefore, the creature has it in her power, as if by nature, always to adore, thank, and bless the Supreme Majesty, because what my will communicates by nature possesses the continuous and unceasing act. So we keep her at our disposal. Our love finds one who loves it with its own love and feels the need to pour itself out, having found one to whom to unleash its outpourings. Our Majesty finds its eternal adorations in the creature who can really say to it a divine thank you, a divine I bless you. In sum, we find someone who can give us of ourselves. Oh, how we love this more than celestial creature. Oh, how we love this more than celestial creature. She keeps us always in activity so that we can give her whatever we want, and giving for us is being more beatified and more happy. On the other hand, one who does not live in our volition keeps us as if idle, without activity. And if we give something, all is measured, since we don't know where to put it. We fear that she will waste it and will not be able to appreciate what little we give her. Then with even stronger anxiety he added, my good daughter, the prodigies that my fiat operates in the act of the creature who lives in it are unheard of. As it sees that she's about to form it, my fiat runs to take the act in its hands. It purifies it, molds it, invests it with light. Then he looks at it to see if that act can receive its sanctity and its beauty, if it can enclose it within its immensity, if it can let flow within its power its love. Once it has done everything, because nothing can be lacking to its act, it kisses it, it hugs it, and pours itself all over it. With indescribable solemnity and love, it pronounces its omnipotent fiat and creates another self in that act. The heavens become all attentive when my will is about to operate in the act of the creature. They are moved, remaining amazed and enraptured, exclaiming, is it possible that a God and his will, thrice holy, can reach so much love to the extent of creating himself in the act of the creature? My very fiat goes back to look at what it has done in the act of the creature, and it feels enraptured, delighted in seeing its new life. Taken by indescribable joy, it makes feast for the whole of heaven and abounds in pouring out graces upon all the earth. I call these acts my life, my act, echo of my power, the prodigies of my love. My daughter, make me happy. These are the joys of my creation, the feasts of my creative virtue, being able to form one of my lives for each act done by the creature. Therefore, call me always in your acts, never put me aside, and I'll always do new things in you to astonish all peoples. Only then will I have the return and the glory of the whole creation, when I will have filled heaven and earth with many of my new lives. End of the reading. There are no more readings today. Have a blessed day.